Hey guys, welcome to Movie King, the channel where it is all about Marvel. Today, I'm going to be giving you details on how Spider-Man killed Mary Jane in the Spiderman Reign comics. The way he did it, as gross as it is inappropriate. So, if there are small children watching this, you probably don't want to go further into this video. There's some real 18 years or older content coming up, so viewer discretion is advised. But before we start, you already know you have to hit that subscribe button. How else do you want this channel to keep running? Show us some love because we always have new content coming out on a weekly basis. Controversies in the Marvel Universe. Now, for those of us who are fans of the Marvel Comics, we're no strangers to some of the controversial stuff that the Marvel comic creators have done in the past. We've seen a couple things that a lot of us consider to be non-canonical when they did some outlandish things with some of our favorite characters, like killing Captain America in the Civil War, making Thor a woman, and not to mention creating a weird instance where Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch became a couple. There was even once where Captain America was announced as an agent of Hydra. I mean, that's just breaking the canon that results from decades of comic book history. These new iterations met a lot of controversy amongst fans, and not the good kind. There were a lot of mixed feelings on some of the pieces, and thankfully, Marvel found a way to revert the status of these characters back to the norm. For example, the issue of Captain America being a Hydra agent was later revealed to be as a result of the meddling of Red Skull. So in the end, Marvel manages to cause controversy and then get things back to normal. But through all these controversial stories that the Marvel Comics have done in the past years, there's one particular story that seems rather superfluous. Most people think Marvel went too far in this particular story, and it all has to do with Spider-Man. Controversies with Spider-Man. Peter Parker is everyone's favorite web-slinger, known for his witty sense of humor and overall creepy but lovable superpowers. But as it is for most superheroes, Spider-Man has been through a lot. There have been issues where he lost his superpowers and had to pass off as a human. There have been times when his body was taken over by an alien parasite. You remember Venom, right? There was even a time in the 70s when Parker grew 6 arms. Yes, that's right, 6. As if that wasn't bad enough, he had to deal with an overbearing vampire while this was happening. But those instances are nothing compared to the trauma he's had to occasionally deal with in his personal life. We've seen him handle some serious losses. Good old Uncle Ben always comes to mind. But that's only the beginning. In the Ultimate Comics, we were privy to the death of Gwen Stacy, who was the first true love of Spider-Man. She was killed by the Green Goblin, who pushed her off a bridge and Spider-Man failed to save her. We saw an adaptation of this on the movie screen with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And just like in the movies, Spider-Man was completely traumatized in the comics. He was also consumed with revenge, and let's just say things didn't end well for the Green Goblin. But this instance wouldn't be the last time that Spider-Man would lose the love of his life. Except this time, he is kind of responsible for her death. At least certain parts of him are. Spider-Man killing Mary Jane in a not-so-appropriate fashion. In the Reign comics by Carr Andrews, which were a 4-issue series that ran in 2006 through 2007, we were introduced to a Manhattan that was set 30 years into the future. It was a time when superheroes had been banned, and all the law was enforced through violent means, not just upon the lawbreakers, but on the common civilian. New York was being ruled by an odious mayor who wanted to build a fence around it, preventing anyone from coming, but also preventing anyone from going out. In this time, we meet a rather dejected and destitute Peter Parker, who had put down the superhero mantle and lived in a dismal circumstance. It wasn't really clear what the cause of his current situation was. His life was in shambles and it seemed he was hunted by something. It wasn't clear what it was, and this drove fans crazy. What you need to understand is the kind of endings you get in superhero movies are a lot different from the endings you get in comics. It's almost usually a happy ending, and things start looking up for our protagonist, but that's not what you see in the comics. We've seen Captain Marvel getting unconsciously raped and impregnated. We've seen Tony Stark get dragged down a hole of alcohol addiction, which actually forced him to relinquish his role as the head of the Avengers. Most times, you see heroes get pushed to the deep end and have them hanging by a thread and are suicidal.
What can I do?
No.
When it's pulling me under.
This is no place to die.
Kind of like what you saw in Deadpool 2. And, as we've already established, Peter Parker sort of always gets the short stick in his stories. In the comics, it turns out that Peter had actually gotten married to Mary Jane, and they had decided to start a family together. But she died. And not because an enemy of Peter tried to kill her, not because of some bomb blast or stray bullet. It wasn't because Peter failed to save her. It wasn't because of anything Peter failed to do. Technically, it was because of something they must have done a lot. Mary Jane died of cancer, caused by Spider-Man's sperm. I'll give you a moment to process that. But yes, she died because of the radioactive nature of Spider-Man's semen. You're starting to feel the inappropriate nature of this video, aren't you? Turns out, the radioactive spider biting him didn't just change the morphology of his body, but also that of his genetic material, making them harmful to ordinary humans, which led to the death of Mary Jane. It really hurts that after everything that Peter has been through, the loss of his aunt and uncle, the loss of some of his closest friends and acquaintances, the loss of his dignity on so many occasions.
Mr. Stark? Hey! Mr. Stark? Can you hear me? It's Peter.
All culminated to his capacity for good and all the times he saved his city and the world in general. He gets to also lose the love of his life, and because of the thing that basically makes him who he is, his powers. I am sure Peter must have constantly told himself that if he didn't have his powers, then perhaps Mary Jane would still be alive. It sucks what Spider-Man has to continuously deal with in his stories, but such is the life of a superhero. Well, there you have it, guys. That's how Spider-Man killed Mary Jane, by doing the thing Mommy and Daddy did to make you. Pretty crazy, right? He probably should have used protection. His suit is made of rubber after all. Well, guys, that's it for this video. Don't worry, we don't ideally make videos of this nature, but then again, I can't make any promises. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out some of our other videos. There's a couple on Spider-Man. As always, thanks a lot for watching. Remember to like and share, and I'll see you on the next one.